All right, everybody, welcome to the revival of our fly tying video series here at Rocky Mountain Anglers. My name is Thomas. I'm going to be hosting this series. Stay tuned because we've got a lot of great videos planned. We're going to be looking at some shop favorite patterns so you can fish anywhere, any time of year. So yeah, I'm super excited. We're all super excited. So let's get right into it with our first fly. Okay, so for our first pattern in this series, we are going to be tying up the Micro Chubby. Everybody knows about the good old Chubby Chernobyl, but this is just a smaller version, micro, if you will. That's fantastic, especially on some of the smaller water we have around here. It's definitely a shop favorite dry dropper pattern. This is based off of a variation we get from Yellowstone Fly Goods. And this is like a golden olive color. That's one of my favorites. So yeah, let's take a look at the materials. So the material choices on this fly are going to be pretty simple. We're tying a golden olive color variation, which is one of my favorites. So for the hook, I've gone with a Gamakatsu B10S in a size 14. Now they only make this hook down to a size 14. So if you want to do smaller sizes like 16s or 18s, I'd recommend checking out the Umpqua XT50 stubby T hook. That's a good one. And then the Yellowstone Fly Goods version that we have in the shop is tied on a Komodo wide gap dry fly hook. That's another neat hook. The body dubbing is going to be a little bit of the Tactical Micro Flash dub from Fulling Mill in golden olive. For the legs, using Barred Sexy Floss from MFC in copper small. The tag material is a few strands of standard size crystal flash in color Bonefish Tan. For the foam body, I've gone with 2mm fly foam in cinnamon. And then lastly, the wing material is going to be straight Zelon in the color ginger. All right, let's get started on this Micro Chubby. Just pop this one out. And again, the hook we're using today is going to be the Gamakatsu B10S. This is a size 14. In the bobbin, I've got UTC 70 in tan. I'm just going to start that thread right there behind the eye and start working it back. Take out my tag. And I'm just making a little bit of a thread dressing here, and I'm going to cover the whole shank all the way back to the bend, which I'm going to say is about there. Now for the tag material, I'm going to come in with Crystal Flash in Bonefish Tan. And for this size fly, I like to use about 6 strands or so. So I've already pulled them out. I've got them here. And before I tie them in, I just like to come in with my scissors, square the edges off, just so they're nice and even. I'm going to lay them in a little long to begin with. I can just catch them there over the top with a few wraps. To make sure they're all in how I want them, I can kind of slide them back and forth like that and just work them to the top of the shank. Put the tension back on, and then just begin wrapping forward. I'm going to use these to help build a tiny little bit of bulk in my underbody. Wrap up to about there. Lift the stub ends up. Trim them out like so. And just finish wrapping all the way up. And I'm going to leave those tags long for now. I don't want to trim them until I've actually got my body in. Speaking of which, we're going to dub the body now. And for that, I'm going to be using this Fulling Mill Tactical Micro Flash dub. Again, this is golden olive. So I'm going to build sort of a thin noodle. I just don't want it to be massive. I'm going to make a thin noodle, about 2 inches long to start, and this is just going to be to put a base of dubbing down on the body. Once I've got that, I can slide it right up there. And we can begin wrapping back. I want to leave just a little bit of space there, not a ton, just a little bit. I'm just going to take this all the way back and hopefully, well, it looks like I've got just a little bit too much. Take the last bit off if that happens. All the way back to the bend there. And then just a couple turns forward to about right there. So see, my thread isn't lying directly at the bend, it's just a little touch forward. That's on purpose. And now, ready to come in with my body. And for this, we're using 2mm fly foam. This is cinnamon. And I want to cut a strip about the hook gap width on this B10S. And I'm going to show you guys how I like to prepare my bodies right now. Okay, so real quickly, let's take a look at how I like to prepare my foam bodies on flies like this. And spoiler alert, we're going to be using a rotary cutter. Now, of course, it's perfectly fine if you just want to cut your foam with your scissors or a body cutter, if that's what you prefer. But this is another really easy option that's super consistent, and it's definitely the way that I've found to get my foam bodied flies looking their best. So what we're going to do is first decide on the width of the body that you're looking for. And for this B10S, size 14, I happen to know that it's about 3/16 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is take my piece of foam, and with my ruler, I'm going to look for that 3/16 inch mark. And when I've got it, I can come in with something sharp and just poke the foam right there. It's just going to make a little tiny mark. Then I can flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just lining it up with my ruler, looking for the 3/16 inch mark. And I'm just going to come in and poke it right there with my scissors. And now what we can do is lay that ruler nice and flat over the top, lining it up with both of those points. And you'll see it creates a nice straight edge. I can come in with my rotary tool. I'm going to line it up straight up and down along that ruler. And you don't have to press too hard, but make sure you're cutting through the foam. And just glide it all the way through. And voila. Just like that, you have a nice even strip that you can easily get 4 to 5 flies out of. And all the edges are super clean. All you have to do is cut it to size when you're ready, and you're good to go. So now let's get back to the fly. And I'm looking for the back end, the tail, to jut out just a little bit past the hook bend, like so. And then again, about that same distance past the hook eye. So I'm going to cut it right about there. And remember, you can always take more off, but you can't add it back on. So now that I've got my little piece, before I tie it in, I'm going to cut a little notch into the tail. And I'll try to do this where you guys can see it. But I'm just going to come in with my scissors and at a 45-degree angle, make a little cut right there. And then same thing on the other side. About like so. So now our tail has this little bit of a notch in there. With that, I can lay it into about where we measured. Grab it with my material hand. And then I'm going to pull up my thread and just cross it straight over the top a few times like that before I tighten down on it. And I want to look over right down on top and make sure that it's nice and straight. Looks pretty good to me. And then I'm just going to continue, make a few wraps to secure it down. And I'm also going to just kick my thread forward the slightest bit each time to create a little bit of spacing there where we're going to tie down our legs and wings and so forth. So now that we've got that in, we're ready to come in with our legs. And the leg material we're going to be using is this MFC Barred Sexy Floss, copper, size small. Got a single strand here, and the technique for doing this is I first like to look at where the curve of the material is, and I want that curve to be facing me, if that makes sense. So I'm going to tie it in like this so that the leg is kicking out. And I want it to be a little long at first, but you don't have to tie it in super long. Make the most of your material. Just going to catch it in there like that with a turn or two. And then you could definitely come around and loop it. Tie it in like that. But I actually prefer to just cut it off here on this side and then repeat it on the other side. I just find that way I can not waste as much material. This is just more efficient. And so you see I just drop my thread over on that side and then just work the leg up, sort of pinch it in place and then bring it around again. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but now we've got our legs tied in on both sides. And again, I can just trim that tag end off long. And now, got our legs good to go. And I want to take a look on the sides and see that where those legs are sitting is right on the side of the body and not like too up towards the top or too far down, if that makes sense. So just right smack in the middle like that. And now we're ready to tie in our wing. Again, the wing is straight Zelon and ginger. So I've cut a strand off the hank. And the way this is, well, first of all, sometimes it's tangled up and you might have to detangle it a little bit. Just got my bodkin here. I'm just running it through to get it separated. And I'm going to take a piece of this that's about, an 1.5 inches, 2 inches long. Just like that. I want to sort of bundle it up and lay it in there at the center of its length. And just come right over the top with turn of thread, another turn of thread, and put that tension on it so that it's nice and tight. And I'm looking to make sure that I've got it centered right on top of the fly, which I do. And now I can grab the front end and sort of pull it back. And we're going to catch it with our thread. And the trick to doing that is to just, once you've got it in place, you can just nudge it forward like that. So you create like a little shelf that you can grab with your thread wrap. Just like so. Come right over the top and just make sure it's nice and tight. Now, if it starts to spin, you can sort of work it back up onto the top of the shank most important thing is just to look and to make sure it's all going straight back in one piece like that. So I'm pretty happy with how that looks. So that's our first body segment. Now all that's left is to cover up our thread with just a touch of dubbing, just a little bit. I'm going to dub this on here. It's just like a little 1/2 inch noodle, maybe not even. Ooh, and I see I'm losing my legs on your side. Again, I'm going to pull those up so they're sitting nicely right where I want them on the edge of the body, or I should say right square in the middle of the body. And then can come in with my dubbing, and it just takes 1 or 2 turns like that and we're good. So now I'm going to lift the foam up, spiral my thread over. Don't worry, that thread is not going to show in that dubbing at all. And I'm going to get to, again, just behind the hook eye. I'm not like directly up against it like that. I want to be just a touch back, like so. And this is where we're going to put in our second segment. And it's essentially just the same steps again. So I'll lay my foam down, maybe hold it there with my thumb. With my bobbin, I'm going to come straight over the top, 2 wraps. Make sure it's nice and square how I want it. I can even hold it there as I put some tension on that thread, tighten it down. Once it looks good to me, I can put a few more wraps in there. Again, we're trying to make just a little bit of space for the legs and the wing that we're going to be putting in there. Then we're going to go through that all again. You can actually use the same piece of leg material that I did for the back. And if I'm careful enough with it, I'll get both sets of legs. I'm just going to catch it here. And again, I'm just holding it on the side facing me with the curve out towards me. Catch it there about where I want it. Put another turn so it stays down. Check and make sure that that's right on the side how I want it, which I'm happy. And then I can nip that front end off short. And then I'm just going to bring that piece over to the other side. I've got the curve facing you guys now, and I've just pinched it there. Try to avoid that back leg as I come around. Sometimes this can be hard. You just want to have a loose wrap, catch it, and come around again. You can also, if that wants to fall around, you can just pick it up and force it up underneath that wrap. That'll get it where it needs to go. See, now I've got my legs nice and tied in. I only used one strand of leg material, so nice and efficient today. Now that we're ready for the second piece of the wing, got my piece of Z-line here, and I'm going to take another section of it, maybe a little bit longer, just to make sure I have enough. That's at least a full 2 inches there. And same as before, I just lay it there, the center of its length. Try to avoid all these legs that are everywhere as I come over the top. Put one wrap, another wrap. Tighten that down a little bit. Make sure everything is still facing upwards how I want it. Pretty happy with that. Then I can bring this front portion back. And again, just kick it forward a little bit so that I have something for my thread to bite into. if it wants to bite in there. There we go. Tighten that down. You notice that I'm constantly making sure that everything is staying on top of the shank. We don't want any rolling to happen here. Now, I'm pretty happy with that. Just tighten it back up towards me. There we go. Looking good. Ooh, I see I've losing that leg again. Just work it back up onto the side, like so. Looks pretty good. And now to finish, we've got everything tied in. I'm going to put another touch of dubbing, maybe just a little more than we did in the rear. Here on the front, I want to make sure to cover all those thread wraps before I do my whip finish. Excuse me, I'm just trying to get this right. Looks pretty good. Another thin noodle that does not want to cooperate. There we go. Get that off of there. Make sure I don't catch anything. I'm just gonna take it around, make sure I'm covering all my thread wraps. And when I have got bare thread, I'm ready to come in with a whip finish. So I take my whip finish tool, kind of sweep everything back best I can. Those legs often don't want to cooperate too well. I'm just going to put a nice whip finish in there. And remember, you always want to tighten your whip finishes backwards, not straight down, backwards towards the end of the fly. Once I've got that, I can take my thread out. And now the tying part is done. All we have left to do is trim. So for the legs, it's sort of up to your preference. I like my legs like a medium length, I would say. Really, the most important thing in my mind is just to make sure that they're the same length on both sides. So for that front set, I like to work front to back. I just squeeze them forward and cut them off straight together. I'm going to do the same thing with that second front set. If I can get them, I'll just squeeze them forward, and they're already looking pretty good. I just want them a little bit shorter. About like that. Looks good to me. Now you can, actually let's do our wing now, just so it's out of the way. The wing length, it's best, again, to cut it longer at first, and then, if you want it to a little bit shorter, or you just want to shape it, you can come in and do that after, but you just don't want to take too much out to begin with. So I'm going to group that all together, and then come in with a 45-degree angle, just about there. So it's not too short. It's not too long either. And I'll just make my initial cut like that. That's looking pretty decent. We can come in and make that look better towards the end. There's always some strands that you miss that you can come in and get. Now I can trim my back legs to about how I want them, if I can figure out a way to do this where y'all can see. just past the end of the body. And again, with that second set of back legs, same length, just about past the end of the body. Then my tag, I want it just past the fork in the foam, but I don't like mine super long. Sometimes I see them done super long. I just like mine sticking out there. Now I can also come up front and kick off the corners of this foam like so. I can already see that head is a little long. That's okay. Fix that right now. Looking good. Almost done. I'm just going to shape up the swing a little bit. I like to sort of pinch it all together so that I can trim it like an arc. Mostly want to take this back edge down a little bit. Remember, you want to do this in little bits so you don't take off too much. And I think that's looking pretty good. So there you have it, folks. That is the Micro Chubby. Again, just a sweet little fly. I think somewhere towards the beginning of the summer this year, maybe like in June, I tied one of these on like with I think it was like a squirmy worm dropper. And I don't think I took it off for like 3 weeks. It worked and worked and worked. It's a pretty simple tie, super fun. And yeah, come to the shop, we'll hook you up. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for watching.